This story is called She Took a Break. From our relationship, found lovers, and wanted me back, but I said no. Hey everyone, before we dive into this, I've got a quick request. If you like content like this, please click the subscribe button. It's free, helps support the channel, and ensures you never miss great videos. Alright, let's jump in. Hey Reddit, have you ever had someone turn your life upside down over takeout and a Netflix episode? That's exactly how my 5-year relationship with Elena started to fall apart on a regular Wednesday evening. There was nothing special about it. Just me, her, and some leftovers from our favorite Thai restaurant. But that's when she dropped those absurd words. I think we need a break. Now, I'm not the type of guy who panics easily. I've built my life steadily. I own my house, have a solid career in IT, and like to keep things simple. So, her announcement caught me off guard for just a second. And then it clicked. Elena wanted space. Fine, I thought. Let her have it. But she wouldn't get it under my roof. I stayed calm, though, put my fork down, looked her straight in the eye, and said, "Okay, if you need a break, take it. But this is my house, so you'll have to pack your things and figure out where you're staying." The way she blinked at me, you'd think I suggested she move to another planet. "Wait, seriously?" she asked. "Yeah, seriously." What did she expect? For me to stick around while she figured herself out? If someone's unsure about you, why should you wait around for them to decide? I wasn't about to be anyone's safety net. To her credit, she didn't argue much. Maybe she thought I'd beg her to stay or ask for an explanation, but I wasn't about to beg anyone to be in my life. Not even Elena. By the end of the night, she packed a suitcase and called her sister to come get her. She stood at the door for a moment like she wanted to say something, but I just opened it and held it for her. That's the thing. If someone wants to leave, let them. You don't hold on tighter and make them feel trapped. You let them go. Once the house was quiet, I sat in the living room, staring at the half-eaten pad Thai on the coffee table. It didn't feel like an emotional moment. It was more of a shrug. I wasn't heartbroken or devastated, just annoyed. I'd built this life where Elena had every chance to be happy. And instead of talking to me about whatever was bothering her, she decided to take the easy way out. A break. The next day, I packed up the few things she left behind. Some toiletries, a couple of her favorite hoodies she always stole from me, and her dog-eared copy of Pride and Prejudice. I put everything in a box and stuck it in the hallway closet. If she wanted her stuff back, she could ask for it. I wasn't about to chase her down with a care package. Life without Elena didn't change much at first. I still woke up at 6 a.m., went to the gym, and spent my days working on client projects. The house was quieter, but that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. I had more time to think, more time to focus on myself. It wasn't that I didn't care about Elena, I just wasn't going to let her absence throw my whole life off balance. What did throw me off, though, was how easily she walked away. I started replaying the last few months in my mind, wondering if I had missed something. Were there signs she was unhappy? Were there moments I should have noticed her pulling away? I didn't think so. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but it wasn't on life support either. We didn't argue much, and when we did, it was over trivial things, like what to order for dinner, or who left the toothpaste cap off. Normal couple stuff. Elena never talked about her feelings before. She never gave me any real warning that she was thinking of taking a step back. She just decided, and that's what annoyed me the most. Relationships are supposed to be partnerships. You don't just make a decision like that unilaterally. You talk it through and figure it out together. But she didn't give me that chance. She made her decision and expected me to sit around, waiting for her to come back. No thanks. Over the next few days, I started hearing from friends and family who'd caught wind of what happened. My sister called me first. "She left, just like that?" she asked, sounding more shocked than I felt. I gave her the brief version of the story, and she quickly reassured me that I had made the right choice by not begging Elena to stay. "Don't let her walk all over you," she said. "If she doesn't know what she has, that's on her." Then there was Alex, my best friend and unofficial therapist. He dropped by a couple of nights later to check on me. He wasn't big on pep talks, but he did point out the obvious. "You dodged a bullet, man. If she's this indecisive now, imagine how she'd act in a real crisis." That stuck with me. If Elena couldn't handle the everyday ups and downs of a relationship, what would have happened when life got tough? What if we'd been married? What if there were kids involved? It was better to find out now before things got even more complicated. By the end of the week, I felt like I had made peace with it all. If Elena wanted her break, she could have it. I wasn't going to chase her or waste time wondering what she was up to. That's the thing about people who say they need space. Half the time, it's not about finding themselves. It's about seeing if the grass is greener somewhere else, and if they think they can come back to you once they're done looking, they're wrong. I knew I deserved better than that, and I wasn't about to settle for someone who didn't see my worth. So I kept moving forward, confident I had made the right choice, and honestly, it felt pretty damn good. It didn't take long for people to start talking. When someone moves out, especially in a close-knit neighborhood where everyone shares mutual friends, the whispers spread fast. I wasn't the type to announce, "Hey, Elena wanted a break, so she's gone now," but apparently she didn't mind being open about it. At first, it was just little things. A friend of mine, Jordan, texted me about a week after Elena left. "Hey man, hope you're doing okay. I ran into Elena at the dock last night. She seemed different." Different? What does that even mean? I didn't reply immediately because I wasn't in the mood to unpack the subtlety. I didn't ask Jordan for more details either. Let her be different. She wasn't my problem anymore. Then, a couple of days later, another friend, Lauren, called me. "I wasn't sure if I should tell you this," she began, which is always a great way to start when someone's about to share something you probably don't want to hear. "I saw Elena out with some guy at the tavern last night. Looked kind of cozy." But it confirmed what I already suspected. This break wasn't about self-discovery. It was about finding out what else was out there, and she wasn't wasting any time. I thanked Lauren for the heads up, hung up, and didn't feel mad. At least, I didn't think I was. I wasn't jealous either. If anything, I felt a little insulted. 5 years together, and the first thing she does after leaving is go out to a bar with another guy. It wasn't even about me wanting her back. It was about basic respect. The whispers didn't stop. Over the next week, more people started chiming in with their unsolicited updates. My neighbor Janice caught me outside while I was mowing the lawn. "Hey, Noah," she said, leaning over the fence like she had a juicy piece of gossip to share. "I saw Elena out jogging with some guy yesterday morning. He's new, right? I haven't seen him around before." I just shrugged. "Probably," I said. "Doesn't really matter to me." Janice gave me a look like she wasn't sure if I was genuinely unbothered or just pretending to be. But that was the truth. It didn't matter. If Elena wanted to jog around with random guys or play the field, that was her business. I had better things to focus on, like keeping my lawn in check and focusing on my own life. The funny thing was, I wasn't even trying to find out what Elena was up to. People just kept telling me. It's like when someone tells you not to think about something, and suddenly, it's all you can think about. I didn't ask for these updates, but they kept coming my way anyway. The most revealing sign, though, came from Elena herself, or rather, her social media. I wasn't stalking her. Let's make that clear. One evening, I opened Instagram to check something, and her profile unexpectedly appeared in my feed. You know how the algorithm works. It shows you what it thinks you'll want to see. Apparently, It thought I needed to see Elena's stories. There she was, smiling in the background of someone else's photo, sitting across from a guy I didn't recognize. He had that trying too hard vibe. Tight shirt, perfect stubble, the type of guy who probably spends more time taking selfies than actually living. They were at some fancy downtown restaurant, one of those places Elena always wanted us to go but never bothered to plan. Seeing her there, grinning like she was carefree, made me shake my head. It wasn't that I was hurt, I wasn't, but it was more disappointing than I expected. After everything we shared, I thought she'd at least take a moment to reflect or show some respect for what we had. Instead, she was out acting like a single woman who had never been in a relationship, as if I didn't exist. I closed Instagram and didn't check her profile again. I didn't need to. Whatever she was doing, she could keep doing it. I wasn't interested in being a part of her audience. One thing that did irritate me was how she portrayed the situation to others. A mutual friend, Rachel, called one evening. "So Elena told me you two are taking a break," she said, sounding skeptical. "But she made it sound like it was your idea." "My idea?" I laughed. "Rachel, I don't know what she told you, but let's be clear. Elena asked for the break, not me. I just told her she couldn't stay here while she figured things out. She needed space, so I gave it to her." Rachel sighed. "Yeah, that's not how she's telling it. She's acting like you pushed her out or something." That didn't surprise me. Elena always had a way of twisting things to make herself look like the victim. I wasn't about to waste my time correcting her version. If people wanted to believe her, fine. The ones who mattered knew the truth, and that was all that mattered to me. The more I heard about Elena's actions, the more confident I felt in my decision to let her go. She wasn't the person I thought she was, or maybe she always was, and I hadn't been paying attention. Either way, I didn't feel like I'd lost anything. If anything, I felt like I dodged a long-term headache. Every time someone told me about another guy she was with, I just nodded and moved on. It became a joke between me and Alex. "Man, she's going through them like a buffet," he said one night. I laughed because it wasn't far from the truth. Elena wasn't finding herself. She was just trying to fill whatever emptiness she felt with attention from random guys. And that wasn't my problem anymore. By the end of the second week, the gossip started to die down. Maybe people had grown tired of keeping me in the loop, or maybe Elena's antics weren't as exciting anymore. Either way, I felt relieved. I didn't need to hear about her life anymore. I was too busy living mine. The truth is, when someone shows you who they are, you should leave them. Elena showed me she wasn't serious about us. She wanted to see what else was out there, and I wasn't going to stop her. But I wasn't going to wait for her either. I had my house, my life, and my dignity, and that was worth more than any relationship with someone who didn't know what they wanted. 3 weeks after Elena left, I got a message from her out of the blue. Just 4 words. "Can we meet up?" No hello. No, how are you? Just straight to the point. Honestly, I laughed when I saw it. After everything? Now she wanted to talk? I wasn't about to jump at the chance to sit down and revisit whatever nonsense was going on in her head, but I don't leave things unresolved either. "So," I replied, asking when and where. She suggested the park we used to visit all the time, a quiet spot downtown where we'd sit for hours pretending life wasn't so chaotic. I agreed, mainly because I wanted to see what excuse she'd pull out this time. Part of me already knew this wasn't going to be an apology. It would just be some half-hearted attempt to justify her actions. The day of the meeting, I arrived 10 minutes early. Not because I was eager, but because I didn't want her to have the satisfaction of arriving first and feeling like she had the upper hand. I grabbed my coffee on the way and sat at a chair near the big fountain, sipping slowly as I waited. When she showed up, I noticed two things. First, she looked like she'd been overthinking everything. Hair tied up, no makeup, wearing that oversized sweater she always reached for when she felt guilty about something. Second, she looked smaller somehow, not physically, but in a way that made it clear she wasn't as confident as she'd been when she walked out of my house 3 weeks ago. She saw me, waved awkwardly, and came over. I didn't stand up. I just leaned back in my chair and nodded. If she wanted to talk, she could do the work. I wasn't going to make this easy for her. "Thanks for meeting me," she began, sitting down. I didn't respond. I just raised an eyebrow and waited for her to get to the point. Let her squirm a little. She deserved it. She then went into a long, rambling explanation about how she'd been feeling lost and confused when she asked for the break. She tried to make it sound like she was doing me a favor by stepping away to figure herself out. "I didn't want to drag you down while I was sorting through my feelings," she said, avoiding eye contact. That one made me laugh. Drag me down? I wasn't the one who needed sorting out. My life was stable. She was the one who couldn't figure out what she wanted. And somehow, she'd convinced herself that leaving was some kind of selfless act. "I just needed time," she continued, as if I could be the best version of myself for us. For us, like she had been doing all this soul-searching for my benefit. I almost rolled my eyes when she finally stopped talking. "So," I said, keeping my tone neutral, "how'd that time work out for you?" That threw her off. She blinked a few times, clearly not expecting me to be so blunt. "It's been enlightening," she said hesitantly. "I realized I was taking you for granted. I wasn't appreciating everything you brought to the relationship." I didn't say anything, just nodded for her to continue. I wasn't going to help her dig herself out of this hole. "And, she added, her voice quieter, "I made some mistakes during the break." Mistakes? That was the word she chose. Mistakes, as if everything that happened was some kind of accident. "I heard about your mistakes," I said calmly, not letting any emotion show. "People talk, Elena. I know about the bar, the restaurant, the jogging partner." Her face turned red, and she began stammering. "I didn't mean for it to happen like that. I thought I needed to see if I was missing something." I shook my head. "You weren't missing anything. You had everything you needed, and you threw it away to see if you could find someone better. That's on you." She looked like she wanted to cry, but I didn't care. I wasn't going to comfort her. She was the one who chose to walk out, and now she had to face the consequences. "I realize now how much I care about you," she said, her voice shaky. "I want us to work things out. I want to come home." There it was, the big reveal. She wanted to come back, but not because she suddenly realized my worth. Because the fantasy she had been chasing didn't live up to her expectations. Maybe the guys she was seeing didn't treat her the way I did. Maybe they weren't as patient or as stable. Whatever the reason, it didn't matter. She wasn't asking to come back because she loved me. She was asking because I was her safe bet. "No," I said simply, leaning back in my chair. She blinked, clearly not expecting that answer. "No," I repeated. "You wanted a break, and you got it. But you don't get to walk back into my life just because things didn't go the way you thought they would." She tried to argue, to plead her case, but I wasn't interested. I stood up. "Take care of yourself, Elena." I told her I wasn't looking back or waiting for her to follow or call. To me, that chapter was finished. She made her decisions, and now she had to live with them. The biggest lesson I've taken away from this is that you can't allow someone to treat you like an option. If they don't understand your value, you don't have to stick around while they figure it out. You just move forward and don't look back. and that's exactly what I planned to do. After meeting Elena at the park, I felt lighter. It wasn't just about rejecting her or walking away, it was about reclaiming my sense of self-worth. I hadn't realized how much emotional baggage I'd been carrying since she first requested a break, but now I was done. No second-guessing or lingering doubts. The first thing I did when I got home was clear out the hallway closet. I packed up her things and drove them straight to her sister's house, dropping the box on the porch without any note or message. She could handle it in her own time. I wasn't about to let her linger in my space any longer than necessary. Over the following days, I started adjusting to a new rhythm. My house felt different without Elena around, but not in a bad way. Sure, it was quieter, but it was also more peaceful. I didn't have to deal with her passive-aggressive comments when I left a dish in the sink, or her endless suggestions on how to improve the house. The place was mine again, and I made sure it felt like mine. I rearranged the furniture, got rid of the throw pillows she'd insisted on buying, and replaced the shower curtain. Small changes, but they made a big impact. Each adjustment felt like another step in taking back my space. One night, Alex came over to hang out. He hadn't been to the house since Elena left, and the first thing he said when he walked in was, "Man, it feels way better in here now. Like, I don't know, lighter." I laughed. "Yeah, it's amazing what happens when you get rid of the source of negativity." He smirked. "Dude, you're thriving, and I'm here for it. What's the plan now? Bachelor pad vibes?" I shook my head. "Nah, I'm not turning this into a party house. I just want to focus on myself for a while, you know? Get back to what makes me happy." Work was another area where I really began to excel. Without the constant distraction of a messy relationship, I threw myself into projects and started enjoying them again. My focus sharpened, productivity soared, and my efforts were being recognized. My boss even pulled me aside one day to say, "Whatever you're doing differently, keep it up. It's paying off." It's funny how cutting out the dead weight from your personal life can help everything else fall into place. The real change, though, was mental. I noticed how much clearer my mind felt without Elena's drama taking up space. I wasn't constantly questioning myself or trying to figure out what she wanted or needed. I didn't have to worry about whether something I said or did would set her off. Of course, there were still moments when I thought about her. It wasn't like she'd completely disappeared from my mind, but those moments were fewer and farther between as the weeks went by. When I did think of her, it wasn't with anger or sadness. It was more like indifference. That indifference grew stronger when mutual friends brought her up. One friend mentioned seeing her at a party, and all I said was, "Good for her." I didn't ask for details. I didn't care who she was with or what she was doing. It didn't matter anymore. By the time a month had passed since our last meeting, I felt like a completely different person. Not because I had changed, but because I had finally returned to being myself. The version of me who didn't have to compromise for someone else's comfort. One of the best parts of this journey was realizing how much stronger I was than I had given myself credit for. When Elena left, I could have let it break me. I could have spiraled into self-pity or tried to win her back, but I didn't. I stood tall, kept moving forward, and built a better life for myself. It wasn't about proving anything to her or anyone else. It was about proving something to myself. And I did. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is to let go of what's holding you back. Whether it's a toxic relationship, a dead-end situation, or just a mindset that's keeping you stuck, letting go can be the most freeing thing in the world. For me, that meant saying goodbye to Elena and everything she represented. And it was worth it. Now, standing taller than ever, I can confidently say I made the right choice. It had been about 6 weeks since I had any contact with Elena. I wasn't checking her social media. I wasn't wondering what she was doing. and I definitely wasn't missing her. To me, that chapter was over. So, when I received a text from an unknown number saying, "Hey, this is Ryan. Can we talk? It's about—" I almost didn't reply. Ryan? Who the hell was Ryan? I wasn't interested in drama, and the thought of getting pulled back into Elena's world made me roll my eyes. But curiosity got the better of me, and I texted back simply, "What do you want?" His response came quickly. "It's better if we talk in person. Can we meet?" I had no idea what this guy wanted, but something about his message didn't sit right. If it had been Elena reaching out, I wouldn't have given her the time of day. But this was different. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at a cafe downtown the next day. Worst case, I'd waste 30 minutes of my life. Best case, I'd get some clarity on why this guy felt the need to talk to me. The next afternoon, I walked into the cafe and spotted him immediately. He was sitting at a corner table, fidgeting with his cup. Early 30s, clean cut. One of those guys who probably spends half his life on LinkedIn. I sat across from him without any small talk. "You're Ryan?" I asked, and he nodded, looking more nervous than I expected. "Yeah, thanks for meeting me," he said, shifting in his seat. "I wasn't sure if I should reach out, but I felt like you deserved to know the truth." "The truth?" I leaned back in my chair and crossed my arms. "All right, then. What's the truth?" Ryan took a deep breath, like he was preparing for something big. "I've been seeing Elena," he started, keeping his eyes fixed on the table. Or I was, anyway. I raised an eyebrow but didn't respond. No surprise there. I already knew Elena had been bouncing from guy to guy since she left. The difference was, I hadn't cared enough to put names or faces to any of them. Ryan must have noticed my lack of reaction because he continued talking faster now, almost stumbling over his words. "The thing is, when we started seeing each other, she told me you two were done. Like, completely done. She said the break was just a formality and that you were emotionally checked out." I almost laughed. "Emotionally checked out?" I repeated, shaking my head. "Yeah, that's not how it went down. She asked for the break, and I told her to pack her bags. End of story." Ryan looked genuinely uncomfortable, which I found satisfying. He was starting to realize he'd been played. "She made it sound like you were the one who didn't care," he admitted. "Like she had no choice but to move on." Classic Elena, twisting things to make herself look like the victim. It didn't surprise me, but it did confirm one thing. She hadn't changed, not at all. "So, why are you telling me this now?" I asked, leaning forward slightly. "What's the point?" Ryan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Because I started noticing things, little things that didn't add up. She'd mention you in passing like you were still in the picture somehow. She'd tell stories about your house, about things you used to do together, and it didn't make sense if she was really over you." I stayed quiet, letting him continue digging his own grave. The more he spoke, the clearer it became that he had been misled, just like I had been. "She hadn't been truthful with either of us," he went on. "She made me believe you were the villain. But now I realize she was keeping her options open, playing both sides. When things started falling apart between us, she began talking about returning to you. That was it, the real reason he wanted to meet. Ryan wasn't here to ease his conscience. He was here because he'd been burned and didn't want to face the consequences alone. "Let me get this straight," I said, my tone steady but firm. "She told you we were over, made you believe I didn't care, and then tried to use me as a backup when things didn't work out with you?" He nodded, looking a bit embarrassed. "Pretty much." I leaned back and chuckled softly. "Sounds like you've been through a tough time, man. But here's the thing. I already knew she was like this. That's why she's out of my life now." Ryan looked surprised, expecting me to get angry or feel betrayed, but why would I? Elena had already shown me exactly who she was, and I didn't need Ryan to confirm it. We sat in silence for a while. Ryan fidgeted with his cup again, clearly unsure of what to say next. Finally, he looked up and said, "I just thought you should know. I didn't want you to think you were crazy or anything." "Crazy," I repeated with a smirk. "I'm not the one who got played. I saw right through her the second she asked for that break. You, on the other hand." I let my words linger, making him feel the weight of his choices. To his credit, Ryan didn't try to defend himself. He just nodded as if he knew he'd made a mistake by getting involved with her. When we finally stood to leave, Ryan hesitated for a moment before extending his hand. I considered ignoring it, but decided to shake it anyway. No point in holding a grudge against someone who had fallen victim to Elena's games, just like I had. "Good luck," he said quietly. "I hope you find someone who deserves you." "You too," I replied, though I wasn't sure he'd learned his lesson. On the drive home, I couldn't help but laugh at how messy everything had become. Elena had thought she could keep both of us dangling, but in the end, she ended up with neither of us. It was almost poetic. She had played herself. After my conversation with Ryan, I was done. Done with Elena, done with her drama, and done with anything that even remotely involved her. I had thought the door was already shut when I walked out of the park, but meeting Ryan had nailed it shut for good. That was the confirmation I needed, that she'd been playing both of us. With that, I wiped my hands clean of her once and for all. But of course, Elena wasn't about to let things end quietly. A few days later, I got another text from her. "Hey, can we talk? I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I really want us to work this out." I didn't bother responding. What was there to say? She didn't get to come crawling back just because things hadn't worked out the way she wanted. Silence was all she deserved. Ignoring her didn't stop her from trying, though. Over the next week, she sent more texts. Some were apologies full of regret and self-pity. "I know I messed up. I wish I could take it all back." Others tried to guilt-trip me. "I just need closure. Don't I deserve that?" No, she didn't. Closure wasn't something I owed her. Then came the calls. I'd see her name pop up on my screen, and each time I'd hit decline without hesitation. It was almost laughable how desperate she was becoming. She'd burned every bridge between us, and now she was trying to rebuild them with empty words. I wasn't buying it. One night, she showed up at my house. I was in the garage working on a project when I heard a knock at the door. At first, I thought it was Alex dropping by unexpectedly, but when I opened the door and saw Elena standing there, I sighed. She looked different. Not in the "I've been working on myself" way, but more like, "I'm not handling this well." Her hair was messy, her eyes were red, and she wore a pitiful expression on her face. That might have worked on someone else, but not on me. "What do you want, Elena?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. She hesitated, probably trying to figure out the best thing to say. But all that came out was, "I miss you." I almost laughed. Miss me? The guy she thought she could keep on standby while testing out other flings? "Yeah, no thanks." "I don't know what you want me to say," I told her. "You made your choice, and I made mine." "I made a mistake," she said quickly, her voice trembling. "I thought I needed something different, but I didn't. I had everything I needed with you, and I was too blind to see it." I crossed my arms and gave her a long, hard look. "You think you can just show up here, say a few nice things, and I'll forget everything you did? That's not how it works, Elena." She started crying, tears streaming down her face as she tried to plead her case. "I didn't know what I was doing. I was confused, and I got caught up in my own head. I'm sorry, Noah. I really am. Can't we just start over?" Her tears didn't affect me. Maybe they worked on Ryan or some other guy, but not on me. Starting over wasn't an option. "I'm not interested," I said firmly. You wanted space, you got it. You wanted to explore other options, you did. Now you're dealing with the consequences of your actions. That's not my problem. She stood there for a moment, stunned into silence. Then she tried one last tactic. What about everything we built together? Doesn't that mean anything to you? I kept my voice calm but firm. I don't hate you. I'm not angry anymore. But I'm not going to let you back into my life just because you realized you made a mistake. You need to move on, Elena. Her face crumpled, and for a second, I thought she might argue again. But instead, she just nodded, wiping her tears with the sleeve of her hoodie. I'm sorry, she said quietly, for everything. I didn't respond. What was there to say? I closed the door as she walked away, not even looking back. I felt nothing. No sadness, no anger, no regret. Just relief. She was out of my life for good. And that's exactly where she needed to stay. After that night, she didn't contact me again. Maybe she finally got the message, or maybe she was too embarrassed to keep trying. Either way, I didn't care. My life was better without her, and I wasn't about to let her back in. I started planning a trip I'd always wanted to take but never had the time for. Life felt full again, not because of anyone else, but because I was building it on my own terms. No games, no drama, just peace. Here's the thing. People like Elena don't change. They might say all the right things, cry the right tears, but at the end of the day, their actions speak louder. And her actions showed me everything I needed to know. She didn't value what we had. She thought she could walk away, try something new, and come back when it suited her. But that's not how life works. Not with me. I don't regret the time we spent together, but I don't miss it either. That chapter of my life is closed, locked, and the key's been thrown away. If she's smart, she'll learn from this and do better with the next guy. As for me, I've already moved on. The first I heard about her downfall came from Janice, my nosy neighbor, who always kept tabs on everyone in the neighborhood. Noah, she said, did you hear about Elena? I hadn't, of course, because I wasn't going out of my way to keep track of her. What about her? I asked, more out of politeness than genuine interest. Janice lowered her voice, like she was about to share state secrets. Apparently, she lost her job. Something about messing up a big project and getting into it with her boss. I just nodded, not bothering to say much. I wasn't going to gloat about her misfortune, at least not out loud. Over the next couple of weeks, more stories about Elena began trickling in, each one worse than the last. First, it was the job. Then, I heard through a mutual friend that her living situation wasn't going well either. Turns out she had been staying with her sister after our breakup, but things had gotten tense. Her sister got tired of Elena freeloading and told her she needed to find her own place. From what I gathered, Elena wasn't exactly swimming in options. She had burned a lot of bridges, and most of the people she'd relied on in the past weren't interested in helping her anymore. She ended up renting a room in a sketchy apartment across town, far from the comfortable life she had been used to. Inside, I couldn't help but feel a bit vindicated. She had been so eager to leave the stability I offered her, only to sink her own ship